I would like to sort of ask, there is a mantra within the Church of England at the moment about senior positions.
Mm-hmm.
And many dioceses in the past have said, we don't mind having a black bishop, but not in our diocese.
Mm.
It was sort of, yes, let's have them, but not here. How does that make you feel as a black woman in the church, who goes to church and, and seeing a lot of white leadership and then hearing that, we don't mind them, but not here? Does that...
First of all, it doesn't surprise me. Second of all, I think it's not about it. It's one of those things you just, because like I said, it doesn't surprise me. Just a bit like, it's just one of those things you roll your eyes and like, okay, here we go again, type of thing. And I think for me, my question would be, why don't you want them? Why don't you want them in your church? And like you said, coming into St. Edmund's, you saw diversity and that helped you find yourself and feel more comfortable. So actually that shows representation matters. Representation is important. So for me, it's a bit like, my question would be, it's not necessarily about how I feel, it's about why don't you want those people there? Because it's disappointing. And what would their answer be? That would be the starting point. It's not about me, how I'm feeling, it's about why you don't want them there. So let's turn it back on you. Why is it I always have to justify, I feel sad about this? No, why don't you want them there? What are you scared of? Because for me, there's a fear there. What are you scared of? Why don't you want the black bishops in your diocese?
I think, and that's, I didn't think of it like that. It's a question actually that should be put to others and put to people.
It should be put to those people making those statements. Why is it put to me? It should be put in, and I'm not saying you shouldn't ask me that question, but I'm just saying, for me, it should be put to those people. Why don't you want them? And I think when statements like that are made, especially, we know the church has links to slavery and things like that. And we know in the past, people have used the Bible and Christianity to justify slavery. But for me, when you have statements like that, it just shows you where the church still is. And it just shows you there's a lot more work to be done. And the church is meant to be the pillar of the community. And the church is not even about the actual buildings or the organization, it's about the physical people. And if you're then excluding a group of people, you are not showing God's love. Because you're meant to love your neighbor as yourself. You are not doing that, literally. So for me, you claim to be a Christian, you want to be a bishop, you want to be whoever, but actually, how are you showing God's love to other people? And what are you doing to help support people and help show that love? If you're discriminating against people, you're saying, they can have them, but not near me, because that's basically what you're saying. You're not showing that love, because there's no other reason except for the fact they're black that you're making that statement. If they weren't good at their job, you would say, oh, this guy's going to be a rubbish bishop, or this woman's going to be a rubbish bishop. Don't want them in our diocese. That's different. But you're saying, you can have them, but not near me. And that's the difference.
The thing that annoys me and upsets me, and I'm going back to a very simplistic sort of thinking now, why does colour matter? Why is it because the pigmentation in our skin is darker that actually some people may think, not here, or let's see them as a different race, or let's see them as inferior? Why is it only because it's only the pigmentation in our skin? Mm-hmm. Being black, it doesn't affect our intelligence, it doesn't affect our intellect, our minds, our thinking. And in the 21st century, the things we are seeing, the way black people have been treated for the last 500 years, and for the sole fact that our pigmentation is different. Mm. Why is that so? That's a question I don't think I want to ask you, because we're in the same boat, but it makes me think, why is it? It winds me up, because why is it just because of it? This happens.
I mean, I have some answers, but I'm not going to say them here. They might be a bit controversial, but but I think for me, it's not necessarily about color mattering, because I think there's beauty in diversity. So if everyone was the same, that's not, to me, that would be boring. I think there's beauty in diversity, and when people are like, oh, I don't see color, I'm colorblind, that's just a bunch of nonsense, because you don't see me then if you're colorblind. Because at the end of the day, you're meant to see people's differences and embrace those differences because they bring something different to the table. So, for example, St. Edmund's, because of its diverse nature and the people from various different cultures in the Caribbean and in Africa, they'll bring something different to, say, a church that doesn't have that, that's mainly based on mainly filled with English people. They'll also bring something different. And so there's beauty in diversity, whether it's the way you worship, whether it's the way you pray, there's beauty in that, and we should be embracing that, not inhibiting it.
So I'm a young black man in the church, Chinonso, and I'm hoping to sort of be a minister in the church for many years to come. And my hope and my prayer is that the Church of the Diocese of Manchester slogan is a church for a different world. And my hope and my prayer is that we see a church for a different world. We see greater diversity. We actually see, I think Manchester's doing okay in diversity and enabling diversity, but as a wider church, I want to have, because for some people, I feel it sometimes being somewhere, I feel inferior, being black, and I want to see a change, and so actually I can walk in there and be equal with my brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus.
But you are equal, whether they like it or not. You're equal. But my question to you is, I know you want to see a change, but is the church ready for that change? Are the people that make the decisions, have they asked themselves those questions in terms of their own privilege and sometimes how they may have done things that inadvertently or knowingly discriminated against people? Have they had those conversations in terms of how they could bridge diversity? Have they challenged other leaders? I'm talking about the people, the powers that be that make all the decisions in the church. Have they been having those conversations? Are people open to that change? Because it's all well and good having the dream to see that change, but if the people that actually make the decisions are not actively working towards that change, don't even believe in that change, we're going to be back to square one.
I think it has to be now. We're in 2020. It's been a year of many trials and tribulations and challenges. I don't think there is a place where we cannot make, we have to make a change. There is no, we really do, because you know what? If we don't, it makes a mockery.
Well, everyone could have said that year in, year out. Knowing my mum, I know this is something she's been fighting on for a while, so it's not like this is new. Yes, it's a bit more topical now because of everything that's been going on, and there should be change, but this is change that should have happened a long time ago, and it hasn't. So yes, there's a movement going on now. For the movement's always been there, but it's just more prominent now in different aspects, and we want to see that change. But once again, because a lot of people, a lot of bosses, a lot of management, a lot of different companies say things just to show face. Have they had those conversations? Have they actually unpicked what's going on with the church in terms of racism? Have they actually discussed, like I said, privileges that exist, especially in the higher up? Have they discussed how that's then led to maybe disparities in churches? Have they discussed how and challenged those people that say don't want black bishops in their diocese? All that type of stuff needs to be done. So if those leaders are not doing that, or having those conversations, or even doing it at a superficial level, because those are conversations they need to have, and they need to be willing and open to be challenged on, and be willing and open to actually realizing whether they believe it or not, they may have some biases that they may not be fully aware of, or be fully aware of how they come across. They need to be willing to have those in-depth conversations and really look inside themselves before they can then encourage others to make that change. And if they're not doing that, this is all great and good, but it's not going to be helpful.
It's just another conversation. It's just another meeting that has there is no proactive change. And
do you know when the real change will be shown is when, because as we know, with everything with George Floyd, things are starting to die down. Like, for example, in America, there's still protests going on every day, but you watch the news, you would think there was no protests going on. So there's still protests going on every day. I think there's been a good, 40 odd days of protesting consistently, but if you watch the news, you wouldn't see all of that. So the real change will come when there's not really much media attention on this. Bear in mind, it doesn't change the fact Black Lives Matter. It doesn't change the fact we're all equal. When there's no media attention on this, what is the church going to do? are they still going to try and do stuff to show face, or is it going to be a true and actual change? And that's when we will see the real difference, if there is going to be a difference.
My hope and my prayer is, and I'm going to make it part of my ministry, is that there is a change, that this isn't forgotten, that the past doesn't stay in the past has a right story, and that we use it for the greater good of this world, our nation, and the greater good of God's kingdom.